You're listening to We're All Gonna Die Anyway with Jess Wiener. Don't worry. This is a joyful podcast about life, death, and everything in between. Today is such a great day because I have two guests on the program who give me hope and love and inspiration for the future. As many of you know, I have spent most of my 25-year career really anchored in working to empower women and girls, have spent a lot of time in the youth empowerment space, helping young women think critically about media images, and then, of course, going on to help change some of those media images so that everybody is well represented. And because of this work that I do, I've had a chance throughout my career to meet really incredible young women. And I mean, inspiring go-getters who've literally gone on to change the industries that they work in. I'm never surprised when I meet incredible young women. I'm not surprised at all that teen girls are everything. I'm just surprised at how much the world discounts young women and their ideas and their vision, which is why for this program, I wanted to bring on two young women that I have met and worked with in various capacities in my world. And I just love and adore them. And I think they are no doubt the future. So I'm so excited to introduce you today to Khloe Thompson and Taylor Richardson. And I'm going to tell you about their long and impressive resumes, each of them. They both describe themselves as advocates and activists, speakers, and philanthropists. And they live into each one of those titles. So let me tell you about Khloe Thompson. She started a foundation called Khloe Kares. And she was, I believe, she'll tell the story in our conversation, but she noticed a need in her community, especially around homeless women. And she and a family member went and started to create these care packages that had essentials in them: toothbrushes, toothpaste, feminine hygiene products, washcloths, like really essentials that women especially need if they are without housing and living on the streets. And this kind of grew into a mission for Khloe. And I think she was like all of 9 when this started. Wait until you hear this story. It's remarkable, and it is, when you meet her, it's understandable. She is designed and destined to really do incredible things in the world. She already has. She goes all over the world talking to young people, helping to educate young people. And so she's definitely somebody that you're going to want to keep your eye on. Taylor Richardson is somebody that I have been keeping my eye on because I first heard about her when she raised, I think she raised like $100,000, and Oprah helped with some of that fundraising to send young girls to go and see Ava DuVernay's movie, Wrinkle in Time. But before that, I also Taylor was on my radar because she was another young activist who was helping to raise money to get girls to a screening of Hidden Figures. And this was important to Taylor because if you find her online, she goes by Astronaut Starbright. Taylor is destined to become an astronaut and to work in the STEM space. And she combines her love of STEM with girls' empowerment and racial and social justice issues. And she's incredible to follow on Twitter, but she's even more incredible to know in real life. She is smart and understands how to move the world around her to get her fellow young people to pay attention and to really dig into some serious issues. She's definitely a bright star in my world. And so what I love about Taylor, too, is that she's been very outspoken around her having ADHD. She, in fact, started a clothing line called Abundantly Different, Happily Divine to kind of put a fabulous fun spin on ADHD, which she credits to being a really important part of who she is, not a deficit that she's trying to overcome. So both Khloe and Taylor, who Khloe, I believe, is 13, Taylor is 17, they are young women who are not on this program because of what they are doing, even though I just gave you all their accolades. I wanted to talk to them about who they're being in the world. They also are 13 and 17. They struggle with the requisite friend issues, family issues, finding their place in the world. They're incredibly accomplished, but they're also in pursuit of the good life. And we talk about that on this show. In fact, I don't think it's ever too early to start talking about what it means to live a good life. Young people especially have a pretty good idea of what kind of life they want to live. It's just usually when we go out in the world and grow up that we start to chip away at that. So when you can talk to young people about the vision that they have for their planet, for their communities, for their friends, for their careers, it's really quite a breath of fresh air. Just to put a little context to this, I talked to Khloe and Taylor, I believe at the end of May. In fact, it may have been the day that George Floyd was murdered, but we didn't know that yet. So we were recording via Zoom, and I know that if I have a chance to have them back on the program, or maybe we can do a live with them or talk to them about their experiences in the aftermath of that murder of George Floyd, because Taylor in particular has been very active on social since then, talking about the real trauma impact of watching Black people murdered on our televisions, on our screens, what feels like daily and weekly right now. And she talks about it, from her own personal perspective as a woman of color, but specifically as a Black woman and as a woman who is young woman who is figuring out her social justice voice in the world. And I wish that I had more of an opportunity to talk to them about that issue in particular, because it all intersects with the kind of good life that they're looking to create in the world. So I will have to come back to them to discuss more of that, but that's also why it's not inherent in this conversation that you're going to listen to today. What is inherent is so much about what they see for themselves in the future and what they want to change about the world they live in today. Especially as this world feels oftentimes like it's a dumpster fire, these two young women will, I hope, give you the same love, inspiration, and guidance that they offer to me. So without further ado, can't wait to introduce you to Khloe Thompson and Taylor Richardson. Let's dig in. All right, so Miss Khloe, Miss Taylor, you are two of my favorite young change-making human beings in the world. And I was so excited to have you both smushed onto this podcast. My only regret is that I can't reach out and hug you at a time right now. But I'm so happy that you chose to talk with me. Quick question. When I sent you my note and I told you what the title of the podcast was, what was your reaction? Be honest. It's okay.
I was a little confused. I was like, well, this is going to be positive. And then I read the title. I was like, well, maybe it's more of a serious podcast. But yeah. I guess it's a cool name, I think it's your own way. I like it.
Yeah. What did you think, Khloe?
I kind of laughed at first, and then it kind of made me a giggle. And then kind of like what Taylor said, I thought this was going to be super positive and a really cool positive name. And then when I saw it, I was like, oh, wow, this probably is going to be a really serious thing.
I know. But that's the fun part, is that it's serious, but it's not, right? It's I call it a joyful podcast, because I really want to focus on how we live a life that we really love. And what I admire both about each of you, and I have Khloe, I've met in person before. Taylor, you and I have not met in person, right?
No.
But we're internet friends.
Yeah.
And I support everything that you do in the world. And I want to talk about that. But Khloe and I had a chance to meet at an event called Dove's Girl Collective. And we share lots of friends in common as well, like Monique Coleman. And we've got inspiring ladies in our life. And I know, Taylor, that's also your world. You've got incredible people in your life. But what I'm so impressed with both of you is you also seem to have this kind of drive and passion around issues that I don't know if I think a lot of young people have it. I don't know if they have it maybe as developed as you've had a chance to experience it. Do you think that's true? Do you find that with your friends and other people your age? They're wildly passionate about things, but you two have found a way to bring it out into the world.
Mm-hmm. I see that.
I feel I can see that. I see that in myself, I feel like you said, everybody has a passion, but we found it early on, and I think that's the cool part about kids who do good things like us. We were able to find our passion and use it for good, and that's the best part about what I do. Is I love doing what I'm passionate about every single day and waking up to do it. But I miss doing some of it, but I'm still able to give back during this time.
I know. This time, we're going to get to this time, has kind of put a damper on a lot of the ability to see people in person, but you both do such wonderful advocacy and activism online as well. But before we get into what we do, I ask this question of all my guests, which is funny for me to ask you both because you're fairly young. Khloe, you just turned 13. Taylor, are you 16?
Yes, ma'am. I'm 16. I'm turning 17 in July.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So you're on the cusp of 17. Khloe just turned 13 a couple months ago, right?
Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you.
So this is a crazy question to ask somebody this young, but I'm curious if you know anything about your birth. Do you know anything about your birth story? Is there like a story that goes along with the day that you were born that you know about or talk about in your family?
The day I was born, my mom, she had gone to the hospital. She had gone into labor, but like they told her that like she wasn't dilated enough, and so they made her go all the way back home, and she had to wait there. And then by the time she had gotten there, she was going to have a natural birth, and then they ended up finding out that my heart rate was going down. And then I also had pooped in there. And so they had to hurry up and get me out. So I had an emergency C-section. And the even crazier part was my mom, she had started going into labor on Friday. And then I was born on Saturday around like 12-ish.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
And how old were you when you first heard this story about your birth? Do you remember? Like, is it something you've been talking about for a while, or did you just ask your mom about this now?
She's told me before, but I think I'm known for kind of forgetting stuff. So I've before like been like, Mom, what happened on my birth? And she was like, I already told you this story. And so she's like, I always ask all the time. But yeah, I do know that.
Amazing. Taylor, what do you know?
Not much. I know my mom had a C-section, but my mom told me that I was a twin. So my brother Tyler, but he was stillborn, so he didn't make it. But I always think about like what it would have been like if there was two of us. Like, would I even be astronaut, star bright? What sports would we be playing? But yeah, I didn't know that until like later in my life. Yeah, I was a twin.
How many do you have siblings?
I have 2 half brothers in Atlanta with my dad.
Okay. Amazing. Yeah. And Khloe, do you have siblings?
Yeah, I have a little sister. She's 5.
Sister.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, my story of my birth is well, I didn't poop inside, Khloe, but my dad tells a story of I was born with a full head of hair, like this big black puff of hair. And they, so much so that the nurses could put a little pink bow in it. So I have that image, but my dad told me the first time he held me, I pooped all over him.
Oh no.
So we have like the pooping in similarity, Khloe. Believe me, I heard that pooping story my whole life. Like my dad would be like, I remember when I held you and you pooped all over me.
Oh no.
I know. But I ask those questions too, because sometimes I think it's so interesting to think about when we came into this world, right? Like, who we are as people, how we're going to be raised, like what we experience. And so I know you're living your childhoods right now for sure. But if you could come up with like 3 words that describe your childhood right now, what would they be? 3 words off the top of your head.
Right now? Or
yeah.
Right now?
Like right now. Like if you could describe your childhood, how would you describe it?
I would say eventful.
Okay.
While also boring. And definitely educational, because I'm learning like who I am as a person, as an individual, since I have to like stay home and stuff. I'm starting to learn that I really like art and like painting and stuff. Yeah. So I like not just like science and math, but like other things like music and drawing.
How did you discover that? Are those new things you're picking up during the quarantine?
Yeah. So I've always liked drawing, but not as much as I thought I did, because like I said, I like to express myself. So I use my art as a way to express myself. And like, I draw pictures of people who look like me. So girls with like curly black hair and brown skin. So I didn't realize like how much I love doing that until I like looked at all the drawings that I made. I made like a couple. I was like, maybe this is something that I like to do.
I love that.
Yeah, so I used to play violin. I didn't really like it that much, but like I picked up a guitar at this one camp. It's called Girls Rock, and I just love playing the guitar every year. I went there for like 5 years, and I just played the guitar every time. So I think I'm starting to learn a little bit more of myself as I grow up, instead of just focusing on one thing that everybody knows me for.
But that's really incredible. I think that's kind of the point of childhood in a lot of ways, right? We get to experiment and try on different ideas and different personalities. So you said eventful, which we're going to talk about. You have had some incredible things happen in your young life so far. But then you said boring, I think was the second one. Tell me about that. Why do you think this is boring?
Because sometimes because eventful, because I go with my friends and I go out and do these things. And then when I come home, I just sit here and watch TV or get on my phone. And I just switch between Instagram, Twitter, and Snapchat, and it's just a rotation. I'm just bored all the time, except for when I'm outside with people. So I've noticed
now, are
that
you bored just because of this time that we're in right now, or is this like forever happening to you?
Forever. Like if I come from outside and I go in the house, I am bored out of my mind. Like I don't know what to do with myself.
I get it. Okay, I love that. Khloe, how would you describe your childhood?
I think I would describe it as, I think, like, I'd say eventful, fun, and then educational as well, because I feel like I've learned so much about myself. Like, I learned that I like to draw too.
You
I
do?
learned, yeah, I do. I've been drawing a lot of faces. That's what I like to do.
How interesting. You both have that in
Yeah.
common. And you guys know each other through social media as well.
Mhm.
I think it's interesting because when you're a young and accomplished person and you've got some, big things that you're doing in the world, it's actually kind of a small circle of people that get some of that. Although I'd love to shine the spotlight on lots of people who are doing incredible things, but you two have been really fortunate to get attention for the work that you're doing, which is wonderful. But I love that you two know each other. I didn't know that at first, and I was just trying to design my perfect podcast conversation with young women that I love, and you two came to my mind. And then I saw Taylor online. Khloe was wearing your shirt. You made these beautiful shirts. Show us the shirt because you're wearing it, right?
Abundantly different, happily divine. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. And you do that around the ADHD. So I want to talk about the eventful part in both of your lives and how at 13 and almost 17, that's a word that you're using for your childhood. So Taylor, let me start with you. Talk to me about the journey for you. I was reading a little bit about your inspiration to look at science and being an astronaut. And I want you to tell that story a little bit and kind of what sparked for you and what kind of lit you up about science.
Well, I've always been interested because my dad's a doctor. He's an infectious disease doctor. So I've always been interested in science. But I guess what sparked, my want or passion for it would be people always telling me that I couldn't do it because I was a woman or because I was Black. So I was like, well, I just have to prove them wrong. So it sparked an interest in me and a sense of work ethic that I had to accomplish for not only myself, but other Black girls who looked like me.
Yeah.
So my whole astronaut star right thing began when I read my idol's book, Go Take Flight, Mae Jemison, Gone with the Wind, excuse me. And after reading that she was a singer and an astronaut and a doctor and all these other things, I was like, well, if she can do it, I can too. Yeah. So I started my whole book drives and all that other stuff to inspire other girls, and it sparked my interest not only with space but activism too. So.
Yeah, well, I think those are deeply intersectional and make sense, right? And you've had amazing success in the book drives and raising awareness. You've had some pretty big partners that come into the mix to help you with that. What's been the most exciting part? Can you tell us the story of maybe we want to talk about Hidden Figures, or we can talk about one of the experiences that you had where you had this idea, you put it into action, and then really incredible people came forward as well to help, right?
Yes, most definitely. So for Hidden Figures, when I was invited for a special screening at the White House after on my way back home from a plane, I told my mom that I wanted every Black girl to see it, all girls to see it, to let them know that they could be whatever they wanted as long as they worked hard. So my mom was like, we can't do this, da 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 da. But I kept bugging her. So we eventually pushed through it. And I guess the most inspirational thing was seeing the screenings in my city, how many girls were impacted that I didn't even know, like people who live here with me, like my own community. And I remember one of the girls at the movie theater, she came up to me and she had one of the books that I was giving out. And she was like, I just want to thank you so much. You really inspired me. I had no idea I could be a mathematician or a scientist. And she keeps in touch with me now and stuff. So it was just that connection that we had, both being Black girls and understanding the struggle of what it's like to be a woman of color. So I guess that's my whole story about the whole GoFundMe. And also the people who help, like Oprah Winfrey and JJ.
Oh yeah, like that.
Because I wasn't expecting like recognition. I just wanted to get my message across.
Of course.
So it was really nice to see that those people with all that power could come and help me, just a little girl from Jacksonville.
Yeah, but you did. So you raised like $50,000, I think, right?
$100,000.
$100,000.
Yes, sir.
And then did Oprah match? Wasn't there something like that? Or
Yes, she matched it. It was like 50, so she
yep,
matched it.
it's incredible.
Yeah.
But people like Oprah or JJ Abrams are really established adults in their fields. I think they recognize
Mhm.
greatness at all ages and stages of life. And I think the other thing that you have that I've always really admired is the vision, the collective vision to help
Mhm.
people along with your own interests. But I'm
Of course.
curious, how do people at school react or respond to your vision?
That's crazy you ask, because I always get this question. And
You do?
my mom, yeah. So my mom likes to brag about me. That's just what moms do. But I always like to keep it a secret because I want people to get to know me for who I am so
Yep.
they can be comfortable with me. But once they figure it out, they're like, oh, Taylor, that's so cool. And then they want to join. And then we come together as friends and then we make a movement here in our community. So
Yeah.
that's what I love about actually getting to know people first and then telling them about who I really am and what I'm about.
Yeah,
But
I
yeah,
love
they all
that.
think it's really cool. And then what I love to see is like my friends who try to start their own movement. Like my friend K Rock, she's from Chicago. She starts her own movement on gun violence. So after we spend time together with the 18 by 18 who gets kids to vote, she tried to make her own movement and
That's
what she's
amazing.
always passionate about. So that's just what I love about telling my friends about what I do.
I love that too. And that's Yara Shahidi's 18 by 18 initiative,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Love that. Khloe, let's talk about your spark. So Taylor's spark comes from reading Mae Jamison's book. Your spark, from what I understand in your story, came from you were walking with your grandma, right?
No, I would
Okay.
pass by the same homeless woman like on my way to school. And I would just ask my mom like why or how she was out there, and she would tell me some reasons, and it really made me feel bad for her. And so that's what really sparked of, wanting to give. But also during that time, my grandma, she was teaching me how to make like tote
That's
like
right.
bags and shoulder bags. And so I told her that I saw this woman and I wanted to help her. And she thought it was a great idea. And so we decided that we would incorporate these bags, and we started going back and forth about what are things that we use on a daily basis, because that's the stuff that she would need.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of really how it started. And we made the bags, we packed them, and we passed it out to that one woman. We had made about like 25 bags, and so
What
we
were
ended up
in the
passing out the
bags?
rest of them. They have deodorant, so they have like deodorant, soap, a toothbrush, toothpaste, socks. I'm trying to think, because we didn't have a lot of like money during that time, so this was kind of like stuff that we found around the store, and so maybe like some shampoo, conditioner.
So the essentials, really, the
Yeah,
things that we
yeah.
take for granted that we have at home. And did you meet this woman and get to know her name and her story at
Mhm.
all?
Yeah, her name's Michelle. She's I I've been past my old school before, and I guess she must have moved somewhere else, or she lives in the homeless shelter. There's a homeless shelter that is right there, and they open up in like the winter time so they can be there when it's colder here, even though it doesn't really get that cold. But they open up in like the winter. So she either moved there or she just moved to a new location. So I haven't seen her in a while. But yeah, I didn't really get to learn her story. We mostly I like if they want to talk to me about their story, they can, but if they don't want to, I like to just talk to them just to be like,
Yes.
how's your day going? My name's Khloe, or like how what I would say to them is, hi, my name's Khloe. I make these bags and I put them with bare necessity items, and I saw you over here and I wanted to give you one. And so we can either leave it like that, or we can sit down and talk.
Yeah.
It's one of those type of things, because I feel like all people should be treated equally.
Yes.
So I feel like it's important to like sit down and talk to people,
Yes.
especially people who are experiencing homelessness.
How old were you, Khloe, when that happened the first time?
I was 8. Yeah, it was. I was 8.
feels like a million years ago, doesn't it?
It does, because so much has happened since then. So it feels like it was so long ago, but it really wasn't. It was
So
only like 4 years ago.
your grandma was teaching you how to make and sew these bags. You then saw it as an opportunity to deliver some essential items to women and people experiencing homelessness. And
Yeah.
then how does it grow for you? How did you begin to grow it into kind of the organization and the mission that you have now?
The way it really how my story really blew up is I went on The Real. It's the talk show. I had gone on there. I don't even know. Like, I remember one day I was in class and my mom came and she was like, Chloe, come here. And I said, okay. And I walked in the hallway and she says, you're going on The Real. And I said, what? And she says, you're going on The Real. And I was like, no, you're not. No, I'm not. You're lying to me. You're lying to me. And so I had went on there. I talked about what I did, and we kind of waited until it aired and everything. And that's when everything kind of blew up. That's when we started getting emails and calls, and people wanted me to. I started going on the news a bunch, or like my story ended up on the news a bunch, and it was kind of like, oh my gosh, what's happening to me? Because I was just that little girl that just gave a bag to someone. That's it. That's all I really did, and I wasn't expecting. Like with me, like I don't give to expect something back. I give because I know it's needed. So like I just gave it to her because I thought she needed it. I knew that she needed it, and I wasn't expecting anything back. Because like it's not important to me. Like all the things that I get, it's I don't really care about. It's not that I don't care. I don't need the awards. I don't need all that to survive. Like I just giving is what I love to do, and if this comes along with it, and this is just what comes along with it. That's kind of like how I feel about it.
Well, I think that's another reason why I admire you both. I mean, Taylor, do you feel similarly that you're doing you're, interested in the things you're interested in, and what comes of it comes of it. But I'm curious, I guess I'm curious for you both though, what does it feel like for you when your story gets put out there and people have an opinion, right? Because in general, everybody on the internet has an opinion about something, right? But I mean, in some ways, what does it feel like as you grow more known, let's say, for things like this? Like, what does it feel like for you? What do you maybe wrestle with? Are there things that you worry about, or things that you've just understood about yourself as more and more people know your story? Taylor, how's that impacted you?
Well, I guess it comes with goods and bads, pros and cons. Because
Yeah.
getting recognition, I guess, gets my message across, all different platforms and around the world, which is good. But also, hate comes with it too. Some people think I'm too young to know what I'm passionate about, or some people don't understand what I'm trying to do or who I am as a Black girl. So there's definitely pros and cons to it, but I try to focus on the positive and just remember what I'm doing it for. And it's crazy how similar we are, Chloe, because my grandma has always taught me to give back, and she sews too. But I just feel like my connection and my relationship with my grandma has impacted me in a huge way, because she taught me that giving back is probably the most important thing in the world. And like you were saying, to give back because they need it, not to get recognition for it. So I've always been taught that, and I will continue to promote that in my message.
What's your grandma's name, Taylor?
Geraldine Ford. Shout out to Grandma.
Geraldine. And Chloe, what's your grandma's name? Betty. Betty and Geraldine. And I'll add my grandma to the mix too, because my grandma had the same philosophy. So Molly, grandma Molly. I think that's really special, actually, to be given an understanding of how to have a servant's heart at a young age, and to know that giving can be a love language. It's also a big part of community and identity, I think, to to give, not to receive, but give to connect, give to relate, give to see somebody else. That's I think a huge developmental part. And look, I'll be honest with you. I mean, not a lot of adults develop that. Know that. I think you both know enough about seeing adults in the world that, and clearly we're living in one of the worst administrations ever imaginable. nobody, you know, like doesn't mean that once you grow up that you get any of these things. That's why I think it was really important to speak to you at this stage that you're at, because I'm so grateful that you're getting to see who you are in the work you do. Aren't you?
Definitely.
Yeah, it's a good
Yeah, same, most
foundation.
definitely.
So role models play a big part in your life, whether it's grandmas or moms, I've heard, and dads and family. And I want to talk about Khloe, who's been a big role model in your life on a daily basis, or maybe somebody who's inspired you. But I'm curious, like I call it the esteem team, but like who's around you that's like really helping you stay grounded, stay connected, you know, stay focused on the right things. Who does that for you?
I feel like my grandma, she does that. Like, she keeps me, like, she always finds new projects to keep me going. Cause, like, I feel like she wants to make sure that I continue sewing. Cause I'm the only one in my family that really, like, took that sewing part of life because nobody else wanted to do it. I'll just say that. Nobody else wanted to sew except for me. So she wants to make sure that I stay that way. But I feel like also there's just so many people like around me, like my friends, my family, like, you know, they always are supporting me and they're always keeping me up. And I feel like they are like the people who like really are important to me and they're like the reason why I continue doing what I do. Same thing like with my friends. Like a lot of my friends, they're all uplifting and they're all like, you know what, it's okay if this didn't happen, you know what, there's always another opportunity. Or like we'll be talking about something and then like we'll be like getting like really deep into like a conversation about just life in general. And like it's just it's great to have people like to be able to talk to, you know. And I feel like they're like those people that really keep me going.
Yeah.
And I feel like if it weren't for them, I don't think I would still be doing what I was doing. So I feel like they're just such important people. But also my parents are really important. Like
Yeah.
they're just there, you know? They're there.
Ugh.
Yeah.
They're there. And is Grandma Betty the one that we're talking about when you say who's the sewer, right?
Yeah, my grandma, she's technically my great grandma, but
Okay.
I call her my grandma because, you know, she's my grandma.
Yeah, I get. And is she the one helping you right now? Because you're also sewing masks during this
Yeah.
pandemic.
She's helping a lot. She's actually the reason why we started making masks. She had made some for us because she was just making some for like her family because she was like, you know what, they need masks, and so she sent us some, and we are like, how'd you do that? And then she showed us how to do it, and we're like, that's pretty cool. We can donate some of these, you know, we can give some of these away. And so she was like, here, I'll send you the pattern or I'll give you the measurements. And we were like, all right, perfect. And so that's just how it went. And she's like
Yeah.
the reason why we're making these masks. And I think it's just so cool that, like I said, she's always giving us new projects. So it's so cool knowing that she's the reason why we're donating masks, you know?
Yeah.
She's awesome.
She is awesome. She sounds awesome. You're awesome. I got the benefit of getting your masks. We wear them. We keep one in the car. I keep one in my purse. They're amazing. Taylor, tell me about your role models and kind of who's on your esteem team in your life right now.
I like we said, our grandma, my mom. Um, like she said, like my mom always says, it takes a village to raise a kid. So I definitely would be saying Chloe about the friends and family
Yeah.
who are always there to uplift me. Because sometimes I forget, because like let's say you lose a friend. Like if I lose one friend, I'm starting to think that I'm alone. But I soon forget the people who actually care about me and uplift me all the
Yeah.
time. So I definitely would say friends and family, but I do have a mentor here in Jacksonville, Florida. His name is Darnell Smith, and he's supported me ever since it started, like ever since I was 9. So he always
Wow.
tells me, yeah, he always tells me to keep my head up, give back, and just has always had this positive attitude that helps me get through what I am today and what I do. So
That's
yeah.
amazing. And you're involved with, I remember you had posted something, you're involved with the Girls Inc. chapter, right?
Hmm.
In Jacksonville.
Yeah.
Has that been a helpful resource for you?
Yeah, I love the program here. I just love seeing girls' faces light up when I see other girls doing great things
Yeah.
and uplifting each other. And it's a good program for building self-confidence and letting girls know that they can be whatever they want. So I love the program. It's been a great outlet. All the mentors and the kids there are so great. It's just a
I
great
know.
experience.
So I wanted to kind of switch gears for a second, because one of the things that I'm so impressed by, Taylor, because we love, like, you're definitely one of my favorite Twitter people. And but your tweets, especially lately during the pandemic and the kind of quarantine, have really, really hit home. Like, you don't shy away from talking about your dad, who's an infectious disease doctor, correct?
Yes,
And
ma'am.
healthcare worker. And I just find that the way you've crafted your tweets and the stories that you tell and the way that you choose to kind of challenge people and wake them up. Will you tell me a little bit about, I'm always so impressed by what you tweet. And I'm curious, like, if that's like top of mind for you. Like, does that just come off your brain? Do you like write them out beforehand? Like, how do you think about, because it's part education and it's part activism, I think, for your followers out there. And some really good smackdowns and takedowns sometimes. But
yeah,
respectfully so.
of course. I would say it comes from the heart, honestly. Like,
Yeah.
I always think about my dad and also my other friends whose parents are doctors and stuff. And I always think about, like, people who still are going out, but there's people who are actually constantly working and trying to help people there. So it's part from the heart, part anger, part wanting a change to happen. So it does come from the brain, I guess. Me trying to build my words together, but all of it comes from the heart, the bigger message.
I think a little heart, a little anger is basically in every activist out there.
Right. So the lack of those in government not doing what we need to be safe.
Well, and the lack of us actually seeing people as people too, and and addressing those needs. Khloe, what have you learned from being on social media or being kind of in public eye in that way? What have you learned about yourself?
I feel like I've learned that just through social media in general, I learned that it's such a great platform in general, because people always hate on social media, but it's not a bad thing. It's like, it's the reason why Khloe Kares is Khloe Kares, I wouldn't be able to get donations because of social media. I wouldn't be able to meet so many people. I wouldn't be able to even just talk to people. I wouldn't even be able to exactly. I wouldn't be able to express myself. Like, social media is like where I can be like my bubbly self, but also I can talk about really serious things without getting like a bunch of hate on it, or I can talk about really happy things, and it's always knowing that I'm able to uplift someone, maybe, or I'm able to talk about serious things and be able to relate with someone. And I feel like that's the best part about it, because it's like I've found so many people just like me who are giving back, who are, helping their community, who, there's just so many people that I've met along the way because of social media. There's so many people that have made me who I am because of social media. There's so many, it's just really like changed me as a person. Like, I've met it's just a great place for me, because it's like where I've met some of my best friends, It's people who have changed me as like in a good way. I feel like, there's so many people that have put me down, which brought me back up, and I feel like that's what's so important about social media.
We wouldn't be here without social media for sure. I think it does. It's a great connector in that way. Did you want to add something into that, Taylor?
Oh, no, I was just going to say it's a good way to like express yourself and help others along the way. And like you said, stay connected, because, it's good to have like a human connection, but when you can't, it's a good platform, talk to others and still see what they're up to.
Well, I think about you. I think about all the girls that know what your mission is, that know and watch and follow what you're doing. And I think about girls who might be in rural communities or in places where they don't have like physical community around them in the way that you might have the blessing of having, and how, social media gives us this real virtual connection. It certainly does get a bad rap. And I think mostly that also comes from adults who don't fully understand that world. But it is a lifeline. And especially right now, I mean, my gosh, internet should be considered an essential tool because we're all using it, but so many kids still don't have access to internet or to technology devices in order to keep up schooling or to stay connected. So, we can't always underestimate how powerful this is.
Yeah.
Khloe, I want to talk about your work in Ghana. And I want to talk about what that means to you. And will you tell everybody a little bit about how you went from, you see this woman, you see an opportunity to give, your grandma helps you sew these bags, put them together, you start distributing these bags. I think I was reading you've got like over 3,000 bags that you've distributed. Is that right? Or more? Over 5,000. Okay. So how does in this growth of Khloe Kares and being this mission driven organization, right? Or, was that how you would describe it? How would you describe your world? Is it a
My world, it's
you?
yeah, it's me. It's yeah, you said it perfectly. It's me, My
Yeah.
world is giving. My world is being kind. My world is, helping people. Like
Yeah.
that's just who I am. That's my world. That's what I live and breathe. That's the most important thing to me. So
How
like, yeah.
tell me about the evolution and the work that you are doing in Ghana and how that came to be.
Well, my work in Ghana all started because of my grandma. My grandma again. She actually she started traveling there before I did. So even though she's retired, she still works for some reason. I don't understand why. She like works to plan trips to Africa. And so she used to work with this organization called what is it called? It's an organization where you're able to travel to Ghana and go back to your roots, basically. Oh no, not Africa. And so we were like, we want to go. But also she had gone there because one of her friends moved there. She moved there because she had gone on a trip with my grandma to Ghana. And so she fell in love with the place. And so she was like, when I retire, I'm moving here. So that's exactly what she did.
Wow.
She sold all her stuff and she moved out there. And she still lives there to this day. And I think she's the coolest person ever. She's my Auntie Dawn. That's my
And you
Auntie
got to
Dawn.
go down, and how many times have you been to Ghana?
3 now. I'm sadly not gonna be able to go this year, but like it makes me so sad. But at least we had those times before, But yeah.
And what
but
would you do
also,
down there?
yeah.
Did you bring some of your giving mission down there as well?
Mm-hmm. So we install water pumps and bathroom facilities out there in Ghana in schools, so that like a lot of kids out there, they have chores, and a lot of these chores have to be done before they get to school. And the most important thing with me is for getting a proper education. And that's just so important to me, as well as there's a water crisis there. So that also needs to be fixed. So how do you put these things together? You install water pumps into schools because kids, they walk miles and miles and miles just to get water that's not even clean, that could possibly make them sick. And then they have to walk those miles back with a heavy jug on their head filled with water. And so they have to walk back home, and then they have to finish those chores, and then they can leave and go to school. And then they're late and they don't get their proper education. So now with the water pumps, they're able to, not have to travel so far, and they're also able to get an education.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's really important.
And you've been helping girls in lots of communities here in the US as well, right? Understand that they can help support that education for others in Ghana.
Yeah, and also I support just kids in general. Like I do leadership workshops with kids, where I teach them how to start their own businesses, because I want kids to have the same opportunity as I had, so if somebody wants to start their own business, at least now they have the steps to. So I do that to help support kids too. So
yeah, well, that's pretty incredible, my dear, to be learning how to start a business from a 13-year-old who's been running this business since you were like 8 is pretty dope. I hope you know that, right? Like, I mean, I became an entrepreneur when I was 21, and I didn't even know what to call it then. I graduated from college, and I don't know if you know this about me, but I've never, ever worked for anybody else. I've always been an entrepreneur. I've never had another job except for that one time. And I worked in the mall in a clothing store for 4 days. And then I knew that that was not for me.
It
And
wasn't the
I started my own business when I was 21. And so for 25 years, I've been an entrepreneur, but you were not around then. Like I didn't know what to call myself. I didn't even know that I could make money doing the things that I loved. I knew that I wanted to talk to young people, especially young girls, about the things that I had struggled with in school and in my relationships and things that were happening to my friends that I just didn't have language for. And I think the big difference, right, is that I maybe got to some of this later because we didn't have social media. I didn't have access to see the world the way you can see the world right now, right? You only knew what was in your community. So I knew maybe what happened the town over or my cousin's friend and so, but like I didn't have all these great role models. But I love this life. I think being able to live a life of making your dreams your work and your work your dreams, like that's a gift and that's a blessing. And the fact that you've identified things that light you up so young, the both of you, like that's what gives me hope, right? I get really excited about that because I think about little Jess. Like I would have loved to have done these things then, but I didn't have any of the same kind of tools. So Taylor, I want to talk about that. I want to talk about where you're at in your life because you're on the verge of 17.
Yeah.
I wish it was 18 so you could vote in this election.
All right.
But I don't want to rush you through this time. And I want to talk about what you're seeing in a difference in yourself as you kind of I know we talked last time you're learning to drive. You have your driver's permit.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of independence and things that start to happen when you hit like 16, 17, 18. Does it feel different to you? Like tell me what it feels like to be where you are right now.
I haven't had a feeling, but I started to notice other things. Like
Tell me.
I noticed I started to mature more. Like the friends around me, they're focusing because I usually have friends that are older than me, and they're working on their SAT preps and all this other stuff. And I guess where I'm at right now, I'm trying to focus on my GPA and trying to finish up these last 2 years of high school.
Yep.
Self-care, like we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
I have a day where I like clean my bathroom, but I also like, do body scrubs and paint my nails and all this other stuff. So I've noticed that about myself. What else?
Tell me a little bit about the shirt you're wearing and the mission around that too, because I feel
Oh,
like that's a
yes.
big part of what you're of what you're learning how to communicate and share out in the world, right?
Yeah, so I just started my clothing line, I guess. My merch.
Yeah, you did.
Um,
You're swag.
for my abundantly different, happily divine, that's what I call ADHD.
Mhm.
So I guess I remember when I was in, I think it was second grade, this girl came up to me and I told her I had ADHD and she's like, well, you don't act like you have ADHD, da 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 da. And I was like, well, there's different forms of it and there's different ways people can act and how they handle it. Some people are medicated, some people aren't.
Yeah.
And I just feel like that was holding a lot of my friends back who also had it because they didn't know how to explain themselves. Or she could do something, but he couldn't, and he could do the other thing, vice versa. So I felt like it was a positive thing for me. I wanted kids to know that if they do have it, they're not different from any other kids, and everybody has it in them just a little bit, and that they can use it as an advantage instead of a disability or something that holds them back.
How did you notice that there was something different happening for you?
I could not focus for nothing. Like I would really try. I would try so hard to just stay on focus on, but something would always catch my eye. And I noticed it in my other friends too, but there was people who could focus and I was like, well, why can they do it and I can't? But I noticed that I had to keep myself busy because that's what my mom did. She just put me in all these different things and it was easier for me to focus on one thing because I knew I had something after it that I had to do. So it was just something you have to deal with it personally, how you're going to handle your situation. But that's when I noticed it first, when I was in elementary school and I couldn't focus. And there's some things that I didn't know were ADHD, like shaking your leg and other things that I noticed about myself.
Yeah. I've known a lot of highly creative people who have ADHD as well. My husband is one of them. He builds beautiful wood furniture. In fact, the panels behind me in the studio he built, and he builds gorgeous furniture, but he also has had to learn how to balance he used to think it was just his creativity, right? He was so creative, he'd be scattered and he couldn't kind of focus, but it also really bothered him because he felt like he was letting people down sometimes if he forgot certain things or he couldn't like pay full attention while somebody was talking. Like he's had to learn how to manage that. So it does affect your self-esteem, or it could.
Yeah, definitely. Because I remember as a kid, my mom would always get mad. Before she knew, she'd always get mad at me because I would forget like to to clean my room or put my clothes up, but it's not something that I can control. It always like disheartened me because she wouldn't believe me, but I was telling the truth.
Yeah.
So it's hard to deal with, but it also comes with, you know, the good parts, being creative and being to share your and express yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we joked about the title in the beginning and how you both are kind of like, whoa. And I think, I was explaining that I've always said things like, well, we're all going to die anyway when I got older. And I realized that like, you have loss, right? We lose people. Sometimes it's expected, like a grandparent or a relative who grew older and maybe got sick or maybe didn't get sick and just, passed away from old age. But I know that I had my first loss of somebody who was actually murdered when I was 13. And that really shaped my whole life. He was my first love. He was somebody I like had a big crush on, and we're just beginning a relationship. And he had a very, very tragic murder happen, a public murder. And it was something that for me at that age, like I didn't really talk about it. And you only really talked about death in my family when it was like a relative or somebody older. We just didn't have a lot of language around loss. And so, I've had these experiences, but it wasn't maybe until a couple of years ago where I got to become friends with somebody as she was dying from cancer. Like I really became friends with a woman who was just very ill, and she was young. She was about my age, and she was getting ready to leave the earth. And like, I'd never had that experience before. So I wanted to talk about this on the show, not necessarily to be always sad or morbid about death, but death is a reality. Death is a life. And what I think about for your generation is, or death is in life. One of the things that I did as an entrepreneur was I went out to Columbine High School in 1999 after what was like for us, the biggest school shooting at that time. Right. And I remember sitting with those kids who had lived through that massacre, and everybody was certain in a degree that this was never going to happen again. And here we are now, it's 2020, and it's happening all the time. And this is real for your generation, right? Like this is something like death is no longer something we can just say we experience when we get older. It's happening to people your age and younger. And so I'm curious if what you feel about that, what you think about that. I look at people like Naomi Wadler, and I look at the people who've had wonderful voices in this space, but people who've been impacted by school violence and just loss in general of young people. Curious what you think about that now for your generation and for yourself.
Okay, I'll go first. I guess for this time period, I guess a lot of young people think they can get it just because they're young, but anybody with a weak immune system and their own personal health problems can get it. And I don't think my generation takes it as seriously as I do, maybe because they're just not educated.
You're talking about COVID, about the coronavirus.
Yeah, okay. COVID, yeah. But also for my own personal reasons, I lost my grandfather last November, and my school custodian, Mr. Gus, rest in peace, he played a big part in my life because I didn't feel as welcome because my school is predominantly white. So he would always give me this sense of, protection and like an uncle to me because he was also a person of color. So when he passed away, it was very hard, very disheartening, but I always try to remember the good times we had and the comfortable space that we were living in. Every time he met up, he would always have a smile on his face. Excuse me.
No, I get it. He sounds really special.
Yeah, but I always try to remember the positive times we had and enjoyed their time being with me and always remember what they would want me to do.
Yeah.
So I try not to think about them leaving, but how they impacted me and what they would want me to do.
Well, that's like probably the best part of loving somebody and having impact on somebody, right? Is that they live well beyond their physical body.
Right.
Yeah. Khloe, do you have experience or thoughts on kind of, the reality? I mean, I also think about you guys all the time in schools, right? I mean, active shooter drills are real. And, like, it becomes a reality that it shouldn't be, but it has been. It is.
Yeah, all those school shootings made me not want to go to high school. It makes me want to stay homeschooled because I'm in 7th grade now.
Yeah.
So like, I don't want to go to high school because of those things, and so it makes me not want to go. But also, I lost my great grandma. Her name was Grandma Candy. And then our family dog, his name was Benji. And I all learned about them passing away in one day.
Oh,
Like,
wow.
it was a lot. I was around like maybe 6 or 7. Um, and we were at church, and my papa, he was talking about, because he's a pastor, so he was talking about, he said that he had said that she had passed away and he had passed away, and I didn't know this at the time. So nobody had told me, and I don't know if they were or they were going to tell me later on. But I just burst out crying in the middle of church, and my mom had to take me outside and sit me in the car and try to calm me down. And
Yeah.
it really sucked because she was really important to me, you know.
Yeah.
But one thing I do,
It's okay.
sorry, I might giggle a little bit. It's because that's kind of like how I try to stop myself from crying.
I
I do too.
understand.
Coping mechanism.
Yeah, it's like my
That's
coping
okay.
mechanism. But she had ordered this dream catcher, and I have it in my room. It sits in my room, like right above like my work, so every time I can always look up and just remember her. But she had a dream catcher, and she had told me the meaning of them, and I thought they were the coolest thing ever, you know. And so she asked me, do I want to have it? And I said yes. And that's the one thing that I will always remember her as dream catchers. And now my parents, they always buy me dream catchers because that's like now my
Yeah.
thing. I love dream catchers, and
Yeah.
yeah, they're just so important to me. And then our family dog, his name was Benji, and my dad had him since he was like 15, maybe. I think 15 or 16. And he was there all my life. He was my best friend.
Wow.
I've known
Yeah.
him all my life, you know. And it was just, I still like remember all those days of, you know, rubbing him and giving him pets and,
Yeah.
you know, but yeah, but yeah,
Those are
that's
pets are
yeah.
incredible. Pets are
Yeah,
really,
they are.
really pets are really incredible. And I've got pets that I love too. They're like part of our hearts also, you know.
Mhm.
I think what's in, you know, I bring, you know, I think it's important when we think about these things, when I see you both kind of tear up and thinking about the people who've planted seeds in you, right? Who've left you with great memories and great wishes for your future, right? That's I think the beauty. I've had a lot of conversations on this show from people who've lost people, right? All kinds of different people and pets in their life. And the one thing that they've said repeatedly that I think is so powerful is, just like you said, Taylor, they spend more time now focusing on what they were given versus what was taken away from them. And it's
Right.
just, you know, it's one way to think about it. And I think it's an important way to think about it. I wanted to have a conversation about loss with young people because I think it's sometimes things that we need to face, right? Like there's not, you know, just so that when it happens to you or if it happens to you, you don't feel like you're alone and struggling with that. I wanted to kind of end on a couple of questions about legacy because you've got, hopefully, God willing, very long, healthy, happy lives to live. You're on beautiful paths towards service and creativity, and you're just on the brink of all this great stuff. This is probably going to change throughout your life, but right now, if you could look out in the future, what is the legacy that you hope to leave in this world?
That's a deep question.
I know.
That is a deep question. I think the legacy that I would want to leave is, I hope to like be that person that inspired all those girls to do good, or inspired all those kids to do good, or you know, did this and so this person did that, you know, be that person that pushed everyone to do what they ended up loving. Or I feel like I would hope that my legacy is great and not something that like you see on the news, like this person did this, like, but
Yeah.
not like in a bad way, but like in a good way. You know, I want my
Yeah.
legacy to be known. You know, I want it to be something that's actually important, because I feel like what I do is pretty important, and so I would hope that my legacy is pretty important too to other
Yeah.
people.
Of course.
And so yeah, I think that's what I think I would
That's
want my legacy to
beautiful.
be.
Taylor, what do you think?
Oh, wow. I don't know. I like the whole saying legends never die, because I feel like if you made an impact in the world where people still talk about you even after you're passed, I think that's, you made your legacy, you made your point. And I always talk to my mom, because ever since I was little, I was like, I don't want kids, da 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 da. But I want kids because they're cute and stuff, but I also want somebody who can pass on my message and
Yeah.
also be part of my generation. But I guess my legacy, just to give back. That would be
Mm.
part of my legacy, to be non-judgmental, make the world a better place. Education, to make sure education
Mhm.
is important. That's actually a tattoo I want. Education is power. That's a tattoo I want.
Yes. How
And
old
so
are you going to be before you get that tattoo?
next year, 17th birthday, I'll be able to get it.
You will? Oh,
Yes.
I waited till I was 34 to get that one.
It's cool. I like it.
It's from
But
New
yeah.
Zealand. It means spiritual protection and prosperity.
Okay, cool. And speaking of tattoos, I also like, a lot of people think like, oh, your tattoo's stupid, why'd you get it? But I feel like if you think it's cool, it's a personal thing. You should get whatever you want.
Yeah.
That's a part of my too.
I'm impressed you know what to do at 17 for a tattoo. I have always wanted one. I just never knew what that sign was until it really comes to you.
Of course,
So
yeah.
education is power.
Most definitely.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. It's always funny to think about. We might even want to write down these legacies right now at 13 and 16 and 3/4, because I guarantee you it will shift and change over time. But here's my wish for both of you. I know that you are accomplished and intelligent and beautifully wise beyond your years, young women. And I want you to be able to like live the fullest, most gorgeous life, full of screw ups and successes, because you need them to learn, and I think part of the thing when you're in the public eye and people really admire you, that sometimes you feel like you can't mess up. I don't know if you feel like that, but you feel like
All the
there's a lot
time.
of expectation, right? So
Yeah,
I
I feel
want you
that
to
all the
know
time.
that you do feel it all the time. Yeah.
As if you can't, like, you don't want to let anybody down, of course.
Yeah.
Exactly. I feel like that is the feeling.
And that's a lot of pressure too, because
Yeah,
part of your growing time is going to be, you're going to have to mess up a little bit, you guys. I mean, that's how we learn as humans, we can't, it's how you learn in science too, right, Taylor? Like not
of
every
course.
experiment starts out perfectly.
Trial and error.
Trial and error. So people are no different, but I know when you've got like a lot of pressure on you or the world's eyes are on you, you can feel like you don't have room to do it. I just want you to know, when it comes to me, you've got lots of room to do it. I will root for you up. I'll root for you down. I think that the legacies that you want to make in the world, you're already living.
Mhm.
And I think that's the other part of this show that I really love, is I want to make a good life, whatever that means. So let's end on that note, which is, when I say the word good life, Taylor, what first comes to mind for you? What's a good life for you? What would be a good life for you?
A good life. Kids. I wanna be doing something I love. I don't wanna like just do it for money, but of course money plays a big factor. But I definitely want to do something I love, because I know people who only work because they have to and they don't have a happy life. So I don't want to be like that.
Mm-hmm.
Consistently give back. And like I said, work, because a lot of people who don't work and just have money, they can forget like what work ethic's about and what other people are going
Yep.
through. So no matter how much money I make, I want to always work for something.
Mm,
Um,
I love
yeah,
that.
just be part of my community, give back no matter what, and never forget where I come from.
I love it.
Oh yeah.
Khloe, what's a good life mean to you, sweetie?
Like with my kids and my family, and being able to continue to give back, and kind of like what Taylor said, to you know always continue to give back and have a job where it's not doesn't feel like work. It feels like a fun day. Um, but still, like, also I don't want to live a life where I'm not working. Because I feel like the job that I want to have, I want to be like a fashion designer, so I want to be able to,
Amazing.
yeah, so I feel like I don't want to not do that as a job. So I think I want to have a job and not having to rely on someone else to pay for my
Yeah.
to get income. But also, like, I want to continue doing Khloe Kares. I want to continue to travel. I want to continue to talk to people about what I do. I want to continue to inspire people. You know, like I don't ever want to stop doing that because that's just such an important part of my life, and I don't think I could ever stop that, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like that seems like a good life for me, and if I get more, that's even better. But even if I get, you know, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like a good life to me too. I think that living a life on your terms, being of service, having purpose, having a passion, being loving to your community, being loving and kind to yourself. I love, Taylor, that you talked about the self-care routine that you're developing.
Yeah.
We need you to take care of yourself so that you've got things to give to the world. It's hard to give from an empty vessel. So from somebody far away, but admiring you and role modeling for you, you're my role models. And
thank you. You're my role model too. Us women have to support each other.
yeah, we'll be there for each other. I'll hold lots of space for you to create whatever your good life looks like. And thank you for sharing what you're sharing out in the world, and just by being who you are. I know that we have you, we got you, we see you, we are here to protect you and uphold you. And I'm really, really grateful that you spent some time with me today.
Thank you. I had such a good time. It was nice to see all of you.
Yeah, it was good to see you guys too. I'll see you in the social media world.
Yes.
Okay, lots of love. Take good care. Go have your fun party downstairs, Khloe.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, guys. I loved this whole conversation because I really do adore these two young women. But I think the part that I'm most thinking about right now, probably will be thinking about, is that small little moment towards the end where I talked to them about, not being afraid to mess up, that they're going to live, hopefully, God willing, knock on wood, a wonderful, long, happy, healthy life. And that along the way, they're going to have mess ups and screw ups and mistakes. And if you were watching, I think you could probably see their reaction to that moment. And if you're listening, and maybe you heard it in their voice, but I think there was a relief in being recognized that they're not going to do this perfectly. There's so much pressure on young people to do things perfectly because we live in this sort of surround sound world where we're looking at everybody's accomplishments all the time. And these are two accomplished young women who have wonderful accolades, but maybe more than that for me is who they're being as young people: kind, curious, inquisitive, gentle, I think, and fierce at the same time, right? Activists and advocates. And so I wanted to spend more time on who they were being. And I think that's an important part to take away from this conversation, that young people do want to talk about a good life and what it means. And they've got ideas about it. But also I want them to know that they're never going to do this life perfectly, no matter how successful they get or have been, that we're all people. And like Taylor said, it's all about trial and error. And that's true in science. And that's certainly true with human beings. You've been listening to We're All Gonna Die Anyway with me, Jess Weiner. You can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook. And you can also watch this podcast by checking out my YouTube channel for filmed episodes, behind the scenes footage, and all other kinds of amazing video goodies. And of course, you can always visit me at jessweiner.com. We're All Gonna Die Anyway is exec produced by me and produced by Lauren Chavez Myers. Our episodes are recorded, filmed, and edited by Jeff Franklin and Adam Lippert of B Film. And our original amazing music is by Becca and Destiny Petrell. As always, I want to send a special thank you to the love of my life, the amor de mi vida, Felipe Lopez. And if you love this podcast, please make sure to tell your friends, subscribe, and leave a review at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, or wherever you get your podcasts. Most importantly, if there is something that stood out to you from today's episode, I want to hear about it. So if you want to share your own story, leave a comment, ask a question, please send me an email at podcast@jessweiner.com. I can't wait to hear from you. Bye, babies.